Mark Radulich says, I have to welcome everybody to the Source Material Comics Podcast, episode 248. We are back, and if you look outside, I don't think you're going to see a full moon, but it's getting closer and closer to Halloween. I'm sure it's dark, getting scary. We're in the midst of October, and Mark Radulich has picked a doozy to finish us out for the month of October. Mark, we are going to be talking Blackest Night, and I want you to tell our listeners why right now, and then I'll introduce Chris Armstrong.
One word: zombies.
Oh, yeah, baby. I'm really surprised that you didn't lean toward Marvel zombies. Did you know, first off, did you know that was a series that existed?
Yeah, it looks retarded.
Okay. I think as you got to Marvel Zombies 5, a lot of people might agree.
The first Marvel Zombies is good.
Yes, the first
Second one's all right. Then I stopped reading them.
I know, honestly,
Marvel Zombies versus Army of Darkness is also good, but mostly because it's got Army of Darkness.
Yeah, the Deadites.
Continuity in it, yeah.
I mean, I picked it because it's one of the... I think it ended the Jeff Johns run on Green Lantern, from what I've been told. Is it not?
It should have ended here, but then he continued writing it for like 3 more years.
Oh, fuck me. Okay. So way back, how far back? Way back. Sean Comer gave me the reading list of the Jeff Johns run. And from what I understand, I thought Blackest Night was the end. Now I was just corrected. It should have been the end, but shit kept going. Either way, this came highly recommended as far as, Jeff Johns' Green Lantern. In fact, the entire Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run came highly recommended, but we don't have the time to be doing the entire run. So I picked this one. It goes well with Halloween, and scary things, zombies, that sort of thing. So that's why we're talking about it.
I was one of those people that probably told you, man, Blackest Night gave me nightmares, legitimately. And I've said that. I think that's probably like the 10th time I've said that on this podcast. I've
read the story. I really don't know how.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I'm not picking on you. I legit was reading this going, I don't know what, you know me. There's lots of, I'll admit that I'm a pansy about stuff.
You got the old weak stomach, I remember.
Yeah, sure. Bring up a picture of Frodo or Bilbo from the Rankin and Bass Lord of the Rings cartoons. I'll run right out of the goddamn room. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm scared to death. Throw on the Raggedy Ann and Andy cartoon. That's it. I'll wet my pants. So listen, I'm not picking. I just don't understand what the deal here is.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll probably talk a little bit about that as we talk about the issues. Hey, Chris Armstrong is here. You've heard his voice already. Chris Armstrong, we're talking Blackest Night, buddy. Can you kind of give me an idea? Was this something that you were picking up off the shelves, or did you read and trade later? What's the deal?
No, I was reading the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run from the beginning. He started it with Green Lantern Rebirth, where he brought a miniseries where he brought Hal Jordan back, and then they launched the new Green Lantern series, and I picked it up, all throughout his run. It was really kind of peaked early around Sinestro Corps War, which was the big event, I think, before this one, probably a year or so before this. Mm-hmm. Blackest Night would have probably been a really good place for him to jump off and end his run, but he continued on for several more years and to varying success, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, Jeff Johns is
all Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run is one of my favorite comic runs of all time. It just kind of petered out towards the end.
Pretty heralded writer. I mean, we've covered him a couple times on here, Mark, when we talked Aquaman, right?
Yes, and then he went on to no success at Warner Brothers making DC films.
That's a sore spot. It's a sore spot.
I've got questions about how much power he has in those.
I have answers. The answer is 0.
Yeah, that would suck to watch these properties get that much of a negative reception on film and then somehow have your name tied to that. As great as you were as being a writer, and then you get switched over to the film.
Like it.
Yeah, that's what sucks. He's got to be, he's got to stand behind these things. Yeah, just like you guys said, I've heard theories as well. It's like he was brought over there, but I mean, it's like he couldn't do anything. Just slapping his name on something, which gets it a little bit of recognition. But I mean, my goodness. Well, we've already told you who the writer is on this here series. The penciler was Ivan. How are we going to pronounce it, Chris? Reyes?
Reyes.
Reyes? Okay. I like it. Ivan Reyes, inker Auclair Albert, letterer Nick J. Napolitano. Oh, Napolitano. That's what we're wanting. Nick J. Napolitano.
Are you having a stroke?
Alex Sinclair is the colorist. I can pronounce that at least. So the first issue of Blackest Night goes on sale July 15th of 2009, and the final issue, which is number 8, goes on sale March 31st of 2010. Now, this is a huge event, a huge DC event. If you take a look at the checklist of all the titles that it affected a lot. Not only was this a series that was resurrecting dead heroes, there were series of comics that were brought back for just like one issue. Power of Shazam number 48. The question
Did you just type in Jesse's Nightmares?
The Question number 37, Suicide Squad number 67, Phantom Stranger number 42, Catwoman number 83, The Atom and Hawkman number 46, Weird Western Tales number 71, and Starman number 81 were all one-shots of resurrected titles for this series. So interesting stuff. But anyway,
there were also a lot of Blackest Night miniseries like a Batman, Superman, Titans. I think they were all 3-issue miniseries that took place. They all came out during the process of the 8 issues coming out,
all tie-in stuff. Yeah.
Right. And they were mostly all unreadable garbage.
Oh, ooh, really?
That's an overstatement, but they weren't any good.
They weren't any good. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do issues 0 through 4. I'm going to synopsis those. We'll kind of have a little bit of a discussion, some talking points. I've got some things I want to bring up. And then we'll do 5 through 8. Same thing. And then we'll have our final thoughts and do some plugs. So shouldn't be too long of an episode, but there is some, oh my goodness, there is some stuff that happens in this. And we'll talk about the nightmares. So issues 0 through 4. During a worldwide day of remembrance, the heroes of the DC Universe are paying their respects to fallen friends. Barry Allen, the recently resurrected Flash, is having a conversation with Green Lantern Hal Jordan when suddenly black rings begin flying through the sky, finding the graves of perished heroes. Aided by the evildoer Black Hand, the rings reanimate the corpses into zombie-esque black lanterns that are feeding off the emotional energy of those that recognize them. Dead hero after dead hero rise and attack, killing as many living heroes as they can, immediately turning them into black lanterns. When Hal is teleported away by an indigo lantern, Barry, Mara, the wife of Aquaman, and the Atom escape the Black Lantern horde and gather the courage to find their friends. But just as they get started, a large, literal black lantern appears in Coast City, and out walks a decaying figure that goes by the name of Necron. So there is a synopsis for 0 through 4. So I want to start with you, Mark. Tell me about your experience with
zombies.
All of the Green Lanterns, Red Lanterns, Star Sapphires, Blue Lanterns. You're going into this Green Lantern stuff. I know you read Brightest Day before, right, Mark?
No, I read part of the Jeff Johns run. I've read No Fear, and I read Rebirth. No Pants. I don't. Whatever. I read
No Pants.
I read the first 2 trades. The first 2 trades of the Jeff Johns run. So I read the part where he stops being the Spectre and he comes back to life.
Yep.
And then I read the one that followed that, which I believe was No Fear. And I never got further than that. So that's really all of that run that I've read.
Did any of them contain the other lanterns, like the Red Lantern Corps, the Agent Orange, Sinestro Corps, any of that?
I mean, I knew they were a thing, but I haven't read a lot about them.
I think all those got introduced later on down the line.
Did they? Okay. Well, yeah,
I will tell you the third Lego game had a whole thing on the various colored Spectrum lanterns.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're familiar with them. So that wasn't like something brand new for you going into this.
No, I didn't open this game going, what? There are other colored lanterns? No, I was aware of the Sinestro Corps. I was aware that yellow was no longer an issue, that was like an impurity in the original battery, and they retconned that out of there. I was aware that, of the various colors and what they meant to one degree or another. So, I knew enough to get by.
Okay. All right. So I thought that would probably be somebody going into this just expecting this to be a Green Lantern story would be like, whoa, wow, yeah. Look at all this history.
No, because like I said, I had enough context from other stuff that we've read, other stuff that I've read, just sort of Wikipediaing things that I knew that there was there were all these games that I've played. There were all these other different lanterns out there, and that I had an idea of what this was going to be before I decided to do it, which was essentially that somebody was the master of the Black Lantern rings, and that those rings animated the dead, turned them into zombies. Mm-hmm. That was the gist I had before I even cracked the book open.
Okay, good deal. Well, I'm going to run them down here real quick. I won't go into too big a detail here, but I want to make sure that our listeners who may have never read a Green Lantern, they also have to understand that aside from a lot of Green Lanterns that are out there, which is called the Green Lantern Corps, there's also some other Lantern Corps that have been created. So the Green Lantern Corps, their emotion is willpower, and their homeworld is Oa. Now, I'm just looking at the end of issue 0. A lot of our familiar Green Lantern friends are part of the Green Lantern Corps, such as Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner. There is Kilowog. I see Kilowog sitting over there. Red Lantern Corps. Their emotion is rage. Their homeworld is Yzmalt, and the ringleader, the guy you always see, that's in the front. That's Atrocitus. He leads they are powered by hate. Then we have Agent Orange, which, according to issue 0, there's a bunch of people hanging out behind this. Larfleeze is his name. The emotion of Agent Orange is avarice. In other words, it's greed. Their homeworld is Okara in the Vega system. Then we have the Sinestro Corps. Yes, led by the one and only Sinestro. Their emotion is fear. Their homeworld is Quard. So moving on, we have the Blue Lantern Corps. Their emotion is hope. Homeworld is Odom, led by Evan Bevan's favorite lantern, Saint Walker. And then the Indigo Tribe, which apparently they're a rather secret tribe of lanterns. Their emotion is compassion. Oh, yep, can't forget the Star Sapphires. And right in front is one Carol Ferris. Their emotion is love, and their homeworld is Zamaron. And then we have the Black Lantern Corps. Black Lantern Corps, one of the people that we see prominently here in these first 0 through 4, Black Hand. Black Hand, just real quick, you guys, if you want to become a patron, if you want to become a patron, I did a special episode on the first appearance of Black Hand. Now, of course, it happened in Green Lantern comics back in the 60s. And you talk about some wackadoo stuff. Their emotion, the Black Lantern Corps, their emotion is death. I didn't know that was an emotion, but all right. But you talk to a lot of metalheads. You might be able to find out that is actually an emotion.
Oh, they feel it.
And their homeworld is the dead world of Riot. Chris, I'll start with you here, man. What'd you think of the first issues 0 through 4 here, when we all the way up until Necron shows up?
There's a lot of stuff in the first few issues, especially of, this is right after Flash Rebirth happened, which is where Jeff Johns did the same thing he did with Hal. And he was like, I don't like this new Flash character. I'm going to bring back the one that I liked when I was in high school. So by this point, Wally had been the Flash for 20-something years or close to it. Mm-hmm. So, I was not happy to see Barry come back. But at the same time, I'm not a big Flash fan anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we get these first few issues, a lot of it is about Hal and Flash, reconnecting, and Hal kind of getting Barry back up to speed on how things have been going on without him since he's been gone. There's a lot of cool interaction between those two, like showing their friendship and stuff, which I appreciated. Yeah. They had been, obviously, Barry just coming back. You could tell he was kind of adjusting. I think it's, it's in these issues where he asks Hal, he says, how many people have died since I've been gone? And then Hal's like, well, here you go. And he shows there's a ton of heroes that have passed in the years that have passed since he has. Obviously, what you're getting into here. There's a lot of discussion about death and heroes dying at the beginning of this before before the rings hit the fan. Cool to see those two kind of connect with each other and talk about what's happened since Barry left. That's one of the things that really stuck out to me is that this is it's Blackest Night, so it's basically a Green Lantern event that incorporates all the other DC stuff. But like Hal is pretty much sharing the stage with Barry, especially in the first handful of issues. Like Jeff Johns, I think, really wanted to showcase both of those characters and get Barry back into the thick of things in the DCU. Also, in the first issue, we see Hawkman and Hawkgirl.
Oh man, man,
I kind of like those characters. I've never even probably read a Hawkman comic that I can think of off the top of my head. I've certainly never been an avid reader of that, but I've always liked Hawkman in Justice League and in other DC books when he's like shown up and stuff. So. He and Hawkgirl have a pretty, or maybe it's Hawkwoman, but they have a pretty brutal confrontation with the first couple of Black Lanterns we really see in action.
Man, oh man.
And it's pretty vicious. Like, as I was reading these issues, it really like reminded me of how DC got a reputation around this time of being like, you know, maybe too dark, too vicious.
Really?
This is a prime example of it. You know, we see like the scene where Firestorm kills his girlfriend.
Oh, dude.
Dude. You know, Mara sees Aqualad get his heart ripped out. Stuff like that, which is a little over the top. It works for this because it's like a horror comic. So I don't have a problem with it, but I can see like why some people were getting kind of fed up with the dark DC stuff. Marvel was kind of the same way around this time. Dark Avengers probably was coming out around this point, to 2009. I think that's around the time Osborn was running the Marvel Universe, basically. So it was kind of across all the comics, I guess. But
like, as brutal as these deaths are, they do go to the lengths to make them kind of mean something. Mm-hmm. You know, specifically with that, with Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Oh, jeez, he criminy. When he takes the mace to the side of the face from our pal Ralph Dibny. Mm-hmm. I mean, as he's laying on the floor, like, they go to the extra length. This, you know, he's obviously covered in blood, but there's a hole in his cheek and you can see his teeth.
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, that is brutal. And then he's just, you know, drenched in blood. And then, you know, they kill both of them right there, yank their hearts out, and then immediately rise. Right off the bat there, number one issue, the brutality's there. You mentioned Jen getting killed. Firestorm's other half, I guess you'd say. Right. That was one of my notes, was that really bothered me. Like, so these two come together to create Firestorm. He obviously has feelings. So what is his name again? Jason. Jason accidentally bonds with the dead Firestorm. So he is stuck in the dead Firestorm's head, while that Firestorm grabs Jen, the other half that he joins with to create Firestorm, and then has to sit there and watch her get killed as he turns the dead Fire. Which I think, is that Ronnie, by the way? That
dead Firestorm.
Yeah, turns Jen into just turns her into salt, and they don't just go like, you know, from one panel to the next. They go through like the emotions that she's having, and she's yelling out. It's painful. Oh my gosh, you know. Yeah, it's horrifying.
And not only that, like, Ronnie is taunting Jason the whole time.
Oh.
He basically forces Jason to give him the formula that kills his girlfriend, you know? So, yeah, pretty brutal.
That's rough. Really rough. Mark, what'd you think of 0 through 4 here, man?
I really liked, I was thinking about this today. Like, this might be the first time in a long time I don't have any structural complaints or suggestions for how this could have gone. I really thought, especially the beginning, the first half of this was pretty perfect. You know, I like the idea that as far as the heroes go, this kind of focuses on Flash and Green Lantern. Yes, you have 900 other characters in this. And I love the premise that the life of the hero is filled with death. Just when you think people are getting through it, getting over it, processing it, there's this entity out there that brings it all to bear. Mm-hmm. You know, that all you know, the sins of the past come home to roost. You have all these dead heroes and villains rising from the grave.
Rise from your grave.
which just does zombies by themselves or is pretty scary a lot. Now you think about like your mother, your father, your wife, your children rising from the grave and yelling flesh at you. Yeah, just the ones you love, the people you care about the most, and they're going flash, flash. Like how horrifying that really is. So I love the beginning of this, and I actually just listened to cheap plug for these guys, Chris and Reggie's Cosmic Treadmill. If you haven't heard their podcast, I'm going to give them a quick plug here for what they actually do. Not just you can go listen to them on iTunes or some whatever. It's like a radio play. They read through the comic, and if you've heard, and one guy's got this deep fucking baritone voice, and then the other guy sounds like he's going to pick you up at the corner from his cab in New York City. Or maybe he's making pizzas. We're not really sure. But so you've got this thick New York accent and this deep baritone voice, and they're reading the parts of all the characters. And when they get to the girls, it's fucking hysterical.
Oh no shit, man!
Oh my god! You did they're reading the part with Hawkman and Hawkgirl, and this is like it's like you never said you love me. I don't know if I love you, and they're doing these voices, and they're terrible and hysterical at the same time. It's so good. Chris and Reggie's Cosmic Treadmill, they covered Blackest Night #1, I believe it was. And it was really good. And they talked about how they set up this story by just sort of going through in a very real way all the people that have died in this universe. Far as the heroes and villains, by showing you various scenes of mourning. This is what I was talking about with Fear Itself, where take some you don't need a whole issue for this. Take some time and get your establishing shots in there. Show me the world that you're going to turn upside down. These are the things that I look for in a story. Again, I'm very cinematic, very movie-minded when I read these things. And I like the fact that if you could picture this kind of as a movie, it's kind of like the beginning of Justice League. Justice League was about a world without Superman. At least that's what they were going for before the whole thing became trash. That's what Zack Snyder was planning on. And so the whole opening of the movie, as you hear Concrete Blonde, playing over scenes of a world without Superman. They showed crime happening, and they showed people mourning, and they showed the grave and everything. They showed what were the ramifications of his death? What are the greater ramifications of all of the death that these heroes and villains have experienced? That's what this whole thing sets up in the beginning. So now you know just how bad it is when Black Hand and Necron send out the rings and raise the dead. The other thing I was thinking about that it reminded me of, and this, Jesse, you might have some difficulty with because you didn't watch the show, but so I believe it's the episode in the final season, like the Long Night or whatever, where the Night King finally attacks the Northern Kingdom. They've done this a few times where basically there's this long battle with the Night King's ice zombies. And there's a whole bunch of dead humans strewn about the battlefield. The battle is over, and the Night King does the cane thing where he lifts both his hands up, and all the dead people get up. And suddenly this army that they did a pretty good job of hacking through now doubles in size because all the other dead ones come back to life too. And so when you think about dead on the battlefield, and then suddenly they reanimate and become zombies, how fucked you actually are.
Oh yeah. The numbers game starts to catch up with you.
Right. As I said to a coworker today, this isn't about treatment. This is about managing volume. But enough about jail mental health. So that's what I was thinking about with Blackest Night was, the heroes having to deal with an endless army of zombies.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, kind of like Fear Itself, where they just keep coming. They don't have the weapons or the strategy to deal with this. There's just sort of swinging at shadows at this point. And so there's a lot of just what are we supposed to do? Not to mention the emotional toll it took on Hal and Barry. So, and the other thing I want to mention, I don't know the whole history of how Barry came back to us from what happened to him in Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I did enjoy the little back and forth he has with Hal where he's just still trying to, he's a man lost lost in time like Captain America. He's just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on in the world, and how, and Barry's having these moments of, wait, that, who, what, and Hal's trying to fill him in the midst of all of these things. I thought that was fun. I thought it was a good idea to shy away from the heavy hitters like Superman, Batman, well, Batman's dead, Superman and Wonder Woman, and focus on just Hal and Barry, because one, they have really great chemistry together, and two, because they're not invincible and they're not like the first tier characters, they're not part of the Trinity. It's kind of fun to just see the human take on these super stories. Do you know what I mean by that?
Absolutely.
Hey, can I ask Chris a question?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, man.
Why is Batman dead?
Batman was quote unquote dead because of the events of, I guess, Final Crisis, which happened shortly before this, where Darkseid blasted him with his Omega beams. He was not really dead. He was trapped in time. He came back shortly after this. So it's kind of a cheat that they have that skull and that the Black Lantern ring, which I think this is in issue 5 or 6, so I'm jumping ahead, but the Black Lantern ring, attaches to the skull and says Bruce Wayne rise. Like, the ring would know that that's not Bruce Wayne's skull.
Yeah.
The brain would be like, hey, wise guy, who you trying to pull one over on?
And later on at the end, I think Hal or somebody says, that wasn't Bruce. He's still out there somewhere or whatever. But it's a really cool moment. And isn't that what really matters? Live in the moment, guys. Live in the moment.
It is a big moment, for sure, because that, I think, as we get into the next, I think it's the next issue, it's definitely the next synopsis. I mean, that's what these Black Lanterns are doing, is they're feeding off of emotional energy from anybody, basically. So what they're trying to do when they raise these people from the dead, they're trying to elicit an emotional reaction out of them. That's their big play. And now when they get that emotional reaction, that helps them to feed off of that and power the Black Lantern. So, I had another note here. Yeah, I have no idea. Oh, yeah, I just want to talk about the people that died. I mean, just like I said, this is an event that, we got lots of zombies, but our superheroes are not just going to be fighting hordes of zombies and everybody's going to live. I mean, we just talked about how Hawkman and Hawkwoman or Girl die right in the end of the first issue. We also see Aqualad, Garth. Yeah, we watch Garth get killed. Damage gets killed in front of Adam. So there's plenty of heroes that are biting the dust left and right. So this is a pretty important event when you start seeing all these heroes. And we talked about Jen, the other half of Firestorm, getting killed as well. So there's a lot of stakes, and it's not looking too good for our heroes. I mean, just like Mark was saying, the numbers game is going to catch up to them. The amount of zombies or Black Lanterns that are going to be showing up is not just coming from Earth either. It's also coming from the rest of the universe. Any other thoughts there, Chris?
Yeah, I wanted to point out a couple of Flash moments that were really cool.
Go ahead.
There's a point where Hal is gone and Barry, Mara, and Ray Palmer, the Atom, are kind of on their own trying to figure out what to do to kind of hold the fort until Hal gets back with the reinforcements and whatnot. And there's a point where Mara says, we need to get Superman and Wonder Woman. And Barry says to her and Ray, like, right now you two are Superman and Wonder Woman. And there's like a nice scene there where he's basically inspiring them to like rise up to the challenge. Because they're kind of like second tier heroes, especially at this point. Like, Mara's become a bigger deal lately, largely because Jeff Johns focused so much on her in the Aquaman books, I think. But this really kind of was showcasing how Barry is a leader and how he can like instill hope in the other superheroes and stuff like that.
The Atom is dealing with some shit in these first 4 issues. I mean, he's still trying to get over the fact that was it his wife or his girlfriend? I can't remember. Jean Loring.
It was his former, like his ex-wife or his ex-fiance.
He's like really broken up about her, even though she was wasn't she the one that killed?
She was responsible for the identity crisis.
Yeah.
Stuff,
okay. So
she killed Sue Dibney
so he's a guy that's kind of down and out right now. He's not really feeling up to the whole hero vibe. I mean, the first time we see him, he's trying to get a hold of Hawkman to tell him, look, I'm having some issues. I need somebody to talk to. And then, Hawkman rage quits and then gets killed. He's trying to deal with a lot of stuff, and it takes Barry to kind of sit down. This recently returned hero, he's the one that's able to sit down and tell him, okay, let's get our heads on straight. Let's take care of business. There's, we're not going to make it if we don't. So, yeah, great moment. I agree. All right, issues 5 through 8. As Hal and the other Lanterns of the Spectrum are attempting to find the source of the Black Lanterns, Flash finally gets some help from a lot of his friends, including Wonder Woman and Superman. But by the end of issue 5, Black Hand is able to resurrect Bruce Wayne in order to elicit an emotional reaction by many that fully restores the Black Lantern power levels to 100%. Now the rings seek out new hosts, heroes and villains that have been resurrected, turning Superman and Wonder Woman into the ghoulish Black Ring Bearers. Hal and the rest of the Lantern Corps, all of the Lantern Corps, make their way back to Earth to try and swing the fight, but their combined might is doing nothing to Nekron. And as Nekron sacrifices a Guardian of Oa, we learn the purpose of Nekron appearing. It is to awaken a being of white light inside the Earth called the Entity, which is the living light that bestowed existence upon the universe. Realizing that the Entity can be wielded like a lantern ring, Sinestro leaps in to control it to battle Nekron. When Sinestro fails to overpower Nekron, Hal Jordan joins in with all of the Lanterns to wield the white light, and with their combined power, they are able to destroy Nekron and the Black Lantern, unleashing an imprisoned Anti-Monitor. In the aftermath, the dead superheroes and villains that were resurrected by the Black Rings become White Lanterns, and somehow are now alive. Mark Radulich, the last 4 issues, what'd you think? You got any talking points, anything you want to bring up?
First of all, I love the ring distribution and who got what. That was fun for me.
Yeah, we could deputize people.
Yes. I thought that was great. So, Barry is a symbol of hope. He gets a blue ring. Mira has all this rage. She gets a red ring. But my absolute fucking favorite, and if it was such a Dr. Doom moment, was Lex Luthor getting the orange ring of avarice, and how it finds him. It's just like, Lex Luthor, you want it all. Like, it should have just broken into fucking Queen at that point.
I want it all. I want it all. I want it all. And I want it now.
I want it all. Like Lex Luthor just standing in his suit, turning all orange. I need a Blackest Night movie just for that moment.
Nice.
So, Walter Hamada, Warner Brothers, you know how to reach me.
Get on it.
I tag you quite frequently. I tag Warner Brothers pictures quite frequently on Twitter, telling you how much your movies are terrible. So you know where to find me. I doubt they'll ever do a live action Blackest Night movie because the cast salaries alone, either people would have to take scale, or this would be a $500 million budgeted movie.
I think the best you can hope for is an animated version.
Yeah. Let's be realistic here. But they've done some crazy ones in the animated universe. So I would love for them to tackle a Blackest Night animated movie, and again, just have Lex Luthor going, "I want it all" to Queen. Let's spend some money and pay for that song. But I loved all that. I thought it was great. Even Wonder Woman and Superman, as powerful as they are, then they become zombies because they're dead before. So that was all great stuff.
I think the nightmare-inducing moment was when Wonder Woman turned.
Okay.
I honestly think, and this isn't, going back through this, I don't think it was honestly that scary. There is a cover, though. I don't know if it was a variant cover that I saw where her and Superman are just completely gray, and they've obviously been turned, and her mouth is just kind of agape. It's frightening to me, Mark Radulich. Frightening.
Well, I just Superman and Wonder Woman are like the two of the most non-cosmic beings in the pantheon of heroes. I guess if you don't count like magic users. So it's one of those like moments in the movie where things are at their darkest and you don't think they can get any worse, and then they do. The most powerful guy, the guy with the heat rays coming out of his eyes and the freezing breath and the super strength that can crack a planet and turn time backwards and all this other stuff, and his broad that can do all kinds of powerful stuff, and oh, by the way, has a rope that makes you tell the truth. And then there's zombies. It's like, what else could go wrong? How bad is this going to get? Because just under normal circumstances, the two of them could kick all the ass.
At the end of that issue, we're looking at it. This is the end of issue 5. Really, it ramps it up because there's practically a 2-page spread of just what you're talking about there. We have Wonder Woman's turned, Superman's turned, and down at the very bottom of that page, like there's a Black Lantern ring going after Hal and a Black Lantern ring going after Barry. I mean, trying to get on them.
And they ran 2 minutes into the future, which I thought was hilarious.
It's like, and that was brilliant. It was actually, okay, let's cut this bond, which was, I was like, how did they do that? Well, there you go. But man, it's just, I think that is probably one of the other things that got me as well. And it's very much like a zombie movie. They just keep coming. They just keep coming. There's no stopping them, no matter how much you think you've been able to kind of like turn the tide in your favor. The rings just keep flying at you.
So real quick, the actual moment that I was trying to reference before, and I got too caught up in Lex Luthor and Queen, was Lex Luthor. Like he's in the midst of everything, and everyone's trying to focus their power on dealing with the Black Hand and Necron, and he's like, "No, I want the power for myself." Like again, that was a very Doctor Doom moment. But the other hilarious thing was Sinestro pushing Hal Jordan into the pool. Well, you've had your shot. I can do this myself, and of course he can't. He can't do it. It has to be Hal. It always has to be Hal.
Yeah, he gets. It kind of took me by surprise because I was like, okay, well, Hal's going to step up here, and Sinestro's like, watch out, hops into the light. Do you have any issues with the entity being, the fact that the Earth is the center of the universe?
I mean, isn't that like a trope though? I
think it's a little too tropey.
But that's the thing. Like at some point, you realize that your audience is the people of this planet. I feel like unless you're doing like maybe like a Flash Gordon where his whole story exists in another place. Your central thing is going to be Earth. You're creating a cast of characters that are supposed to be relatable, so people will keep coming back and buying their stories. It's very hard to do that, and it's very hard to do that with a cast of characters that are off in space somewhere. And that's where even if you think about Star Wars, right? Star Wars entirely takes place in a galaxy far, far away, from a very long time ago. But after all the world building and all the nonsense that Lucas created, he still had to create very human, very relatable characters. If you think about some of the stuff Padme says in the prequels, they're outright referencing the Iraq War. That's what I mean. Like, even if you're dealing with far out science fiction, concepts, like Star Wars, Star Trek, you're still dealing with very Earth-based morals, very Earth-based themes, because how else is your audience going to relate and continue to come back? So, Earth being at the center of the universe made thematic story structure sense to me.
Okay.
I liked how it ended.
Bringing back some of some of the people that we thought initially were dead. I mean, they go through at the beginning of this series to tell you, okay, well, Aquaman's dead. These people were all dead. And then at the end of this series, we got some resurrected heroes that were once dead.
I missed this because I was having to deal with Star Wars stuff earlier, and I had to jump off the call real quick. But I wanted to talk about how they weren't just mindless zombies going, flesh. They were taunting. It was all very personal. It was a mind fuck. The stuff with Ralph and Sue Dibney was categorically horrifying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And not like in the boo scary, it movie, something runs at you, goes boogie, woogie, woogie, and there's loud pots and pans clanging. It's not that kind of shit. Fucking garbage horror.
All right. Boogie, woogie, woogie.
Boogie, woogie, woogie. Rawr. No, this was, just imagine people that you loved using your most innermost thoughts and fears against you. And oh, by the way, they also look like monsters.
Oh man, Ralph was known as this joking, affable, lovable guy, and then now he comes back and he's this joking, homicidal, zombie-esque killer. And they kept the personality kind of intact, and that was what was pretty scary. Was the fact that he was, this was Ralph, and he's just killed two of his teammates.
It was like the zombies were, if you just removed all the good out of the people, all that's left is what you got.
Yeah, and there's some discussion throughout the book as to whether these are those people. I think there's specifically one instance, which, by the way, I want people to understand. I think like there's one instance where I can't remember who it was, but there's one instance where this one Black Lantern gets their head blown off like 5 times, and they just, it's not, they're not zombies in that sense. They just grow right back. So, we talked about the unstoppable force. Yeah, you could lay these people out with heat vision, whatever Superman could do, but they would just continue to grow right back and keep coming.
I said, and I talked about this when we actually reviewed it. I said, scary to me isn't, again, something running at you on the screen going boogie, oogie, oogie. It's the thing that plays on your personal fears and emotions, and tears at your soul, I think is the true horror. Mm-hmm. And that's what made the stuff with Sue and Ralph really effective. And then later on, even the Hawk people. And, I think when Superman and Wonder Woman had turned, they gave them a little bit. This was the worst parts of the people you love turning on you.
Yeah.
And looking gross in the process.
There was a point where Ralph gets killed, or at least it looks like he gets killed. And Sue doesn't even acknowledge it. So they, at that point, say, well, they can't be who we think they are, because Sue would have had some type of a reaction to Ralph getting destroyed. So there, like I said, there's some discussion throughout the book as to whether these zombies are actually those people resurrected, which I think we find out are not. It's Necron bringing these people back to life somehow, able to replicate their personalities or whatever. But it definitely, the goal is to elicit an emotional response from the people. And it's easy to do that. Just like you said, Mark, imagine that if those people came back that you once loved and acted like that. So, all right, Chris, tell me about it.
One thing I'll point out is Ivan Reyes, who I think I've already said on the Aquaman episode I was on with you guys that I think he's the best superhero artist in comics. And I've probably thought that since this series. I think this is the story that the work of his that really made me kind of come to that realization, and I haven't really changed my mind since then. And these last few issues, especially, there are so many double-page splashes of just countless characters, and they all get the detail that they're supposed to have. There's, all the Lantern Corps characters, using their rings, blasting the entity and stuff. It's a lot of detail, like George Perez style, but it also has a modern flair to it. A lot of the digital effects and coloring help it out a lot as well. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Ivan Reyes, and I think he really shines in this series.
Yeah, I'll step in here and say that, props to Alex Sinclair, the colorist on this. I mean, really, you got to think about it. This whole series is based on color. If you can't tell who's a red lantern, who's an indigo lantern, who's a blue lantern, who's a green lantern, who's a yellow lantern, this story falls flat on its ass. So there is some spectacular art all the way through this, and this is for a comic titled Blackest Night. What's really great about it is you could just take away the dialogue and watch the war between the colors, because it's such a colorful book. When you look at you've got all these colors warring against this black. It really turned out very well. When you look at a piece of art, it's the purpose of it is to actually make you feel something. Color is definitely one of those things that's going to do that. So it is represented well here. Probably one of the better books that I think that, has that in it. Artistically, it gets the point across. And like I said, shout out to Alex Sinclair. Did a fantastic job on Ivan Reyes' pencils. So
here's the last thing I want to say.
Yeah.
This is probably one of my favorite big event crossover books we've done this year.
Yeah, you got to think about this. The scale of this, you mentioned this earlier, but the scale of this is huge. And I'll give you one prime example. There's a point where Jon Stewart is trying to hold back a mass of Black Lanterns coming towards Earth. And it is staggering to think about it. As a matter of fact, I think it's quoted as 3 billion Black Lanterns are coming towards Earth. Yeah, I believe
he says there are more Black Lanterns there chasing him than there are people on Earth.
Oh, that's insane. And then you have to put into the story all of the Lantern Corps, and you have to kind of get their motivations clear to the reader. And then you have to bring them all in. You know, you got to, okay, that's Atrocitus. Mara just turned into a Red Lantern. Holy shit. What does that mean? You know, there are a ton of characters. And I think you're right, Mark. When it comes to a big time book, a big event book, you know, you can go into this not knowing everything, but not being taken out by the fact that you don't know everything.
And that's what I was going to say. The complaint that I've had about some of these event books that we've just done, Fear itself being the latest one, but I've had this complaint a lot this year, feeling like they wrote the story in a way that forces you to have to pick up the side issues, which I don't like. I feel like you should tell your story in the central narrative, and if people want to pick up the supplementary stuff, that's fine. Like, look, J.R.R. Tolkien wrote the Lord of the Rings trilogy and wrote up like a bunch of appendices, but you don't have to read them. Mm-hmm. I would suggest you don't, unless you can't sleep at night. But, you know, there's all this ancillary material out there. If you really are like a nut about it and want to read that stuff, that's fine. That, you know, more power to you. But the job of the writer should be to write a cohesive narrative to where a person can jump in, and maybe you don't quite understand what happened with Batman and Flash, but you get enough of a gist of it that it doesn't really take away from the story. Like I said, I really felt like one of the things, and this is the reason why I think it's one of the best we've done this year, it did the best job of weaving together a story that, yes, had a lot of stuff going on before and will have a lot of stuff going on after, but the story in and of itself felt just enough of a standalone that I could follow it, and it has a lot of great beats to it and a satisfying conclusion. And when it was over, I did not feel the need to read any more. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm good here. From the 0 issue to issue number 7, I was like, okay, I feel like I got told a complete story, and I'm satisfied, and I'm ready to move on to something else. And I really enjoyed this. The color pops. The narrative is, you know, the concept of there's a being out there raising the dead, and they have to deal with that, you know, and you know, it's a fairly simple story. Like I said, that's why I reference Game of Thrones. Like, it's not like the Night King had a real complex motivation. He wanted to murder the live people. Okay. Sometimes that's all you need. You know, there was no baby Darkseid. No one turned into a building. Did I get all the hits?
You're getting there, yeah.
So I really like kudos to Jeff Johns for whatever year this was, really weaving together a modern epic comic story that wasn't dependent on side issues or a lot of, you know, expository information. They just got right to the meat of it pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. All right. Chris Armstrong, final thoughts, man.
One of the highlights of Jeff Johns, not just his Green Lantern run, but like his DC era. You know, he's best known for his Green Lantern stuff, but he did a lot of good JSA stuff. He did some Superman stuff. Sinestro Corps War is probably my favorite of his event stories, but this is right up there. As I said before, it probably should have been the end of his Green Lantern run, but he did go on farther. You know, Mark mentioned this is a complete story. You don't need anything else, really. But it did kind of make me, rereading this, make me want to go back also and read the Green Lantern issues that coincided with this, because there is a gap here where Hal takes off to go get reinforcements and whatnot and leaves Barry on Earth. The Green Lantern issues deal with that, with him going and finding Sinestro and Atrocitus and all those guys and bringing them into the fight and stuff. And that, I remember that stuff being really good as well. But yeah, it's really a Green Lantern story, but it's kind of Hal and Barry's story. They kind of round up the supporting cast with like Mara and the Atom, but like Superman and Wonder Woman don't really have a lot to do in this. They're there for some of the big moments. Batman's not around, you know, so it's kind of like some of the DC second stringers kind of coming to the forefront and saving like the universe. And yeah, it's great. It's one of my favorite event comics.
Yeah, I'll echo that. This is one of the better DC events that I've read in my lifetime. I remember when I was reading this, okay, Chris, we got to think about it. Walking Dead, it becomes a phenomenon in 2010 when the show hits, right? Is it 2010?
This.
Yeah, it's after this. Mm-hmm. And that zombie craze was just getting ready to start. I mean, it was just on the cusp. I read this probably, I got the trade from the library, I think in 2011, because I remember my son was born. I remember reading it. And that was just after I watched probably the first season of Walking Dead. Yeah, the zombie craze hits and it goes nuts. I really remember this happening, this event, reading this event in my lifetime, where I was just becoming aware of how popular zombies were going to be. As far as tight events go, Jeff Johns did a fantastic job of standing on the shoulders of those that came before him and did something better. So with that being said, this brings our spooky month of October to a close, and our discussion on Blackest Night has been finished. Chris Armstrong, let's talk plugs, buddy. What do you got going on your end of things there?
You can follow me on Twitter at BrodyMan34. You can check out the Unspoken Issues podcast, the podcast me and Jesse do for the UnspokenDecade.com, where we talk 90s comics every other week, every other Wednesday.
That's right. And our last one was Wildcats, right? Wildcats number 3?
Wildcats number 3.
What if
got a
Jesse
special
and I
Halloween episode of that coming up as well soon.
So, Mark Radulich, you've got the schedule in front of you. Ramahoy has been scheduled for when?
If Ramahoy does indeed come out October 25th, we'll do it on November 13th. How does that sound?
I like it. Sounds great.
All right. In the meantime, between time, tomorrow night we will be reviewing Zombieland 2. On the 30th, Lords of Chaos. And then this Saturday, maybe possibly kind of sort of the Bad Motherfucker Championship of the World. Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. Who do you like in that one, Chris?
I hope Masvidal wins, but man, Diaz looks pretty good, even after like a 2-year layoff against this. So
the Diaz brothers are really, really good at taking a beating and keep on coming. So
I'll pick Masvidal though.
How great was Masvidal versus Ben Askren?
It was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I hate Askren more than Lesnar.
That's saying something. Last week we reviewed Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, Lacuna Coil, Black Anima, Insatiable Season 2, and we did an on trial for From Dusk Till Dawn, which rest assured, everyone, I did not show my son. I had a senior moment. I forgot what was in the movie, and
he couldn't handle it.
I'm just saying he's 5. Maybe give him some time. I mean, granted, I was watching rated R movies when I was 5 years old, but my parents didn't make good decisions either. So anyway, there will be no From Dusk Till Dawn for the 5-year-old this year. Okay. But we did talk about it last Thursday. How about that?
All right, I like it.
I'm done now.
Oh, all right. Well, Mark Radulich is done with his plugs. I'll plug the Patreon one more time there. We have a little bit of an addendum to this Blackest Night coverage where I went back and took a look at the first appearance of Black Hand in Green Lantern comics, and all I have to say is Half Jordan. That's right. If you want to know more about it, you can pay one tiny little dollar per month, and that will get you access to all sorts of commentaries that we've had in the past, and some additional source material bonus episodes are on there as well. I'm calling them my 0.5 issues. No, 0.5 episodes. There you go. But yeah, so check that out. And I think that's it. I'll throw the old cam plugs in here at the end. For Mark Radulich, for Chris Armstrong, I'm Jesse Starcher. We will catch you next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Radulich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon. And there were 19 books. Boxes and boxes. There were 19 books, and
you fucking Gollum. I've got boxes and boxes.
Well, all this banter, I forgot to bring up my notes. Surprise, surprise.
Is that really how we're starting?
No. You know what? You are such like a prude when it comes to intros. Like, it's got to be a certain way. Oh, okay.
Oh no, big slim dog.
He you want to just play the whole video and we'll listen to it?
The phone is down, master.
All right, we got Ratchet. Wait a second. Let's just start with the big one.
Wheeljack. We have Ratchet, Wheeljack, Ironhide. Gone.
Happening in the 60s comic. Hello?
Let me ask Chris. Chris, did you watch Game of Thrones?
Negative.
Fuck me in the goatees. Okay.
Aside from my mental incapacity to deal with this stuff. Dust is my pirated ship.
Yes, Cain Velasquez hit Brock so hard he went breakdancing across the cage. I was both amused and horrified. And then Brock lost the title.
Cain Velasquez. Say his name again.
Hey, Velasquez.
Wow, Mikey.
Velasquez.
Would you like to have some chicken fajitas with Joe Velasquez? Yeah. Do you remember breakdancing Brock?
Yeah, it was embarrassing. For him.
I've just watched it. It's 6 seconds long. he gets pummeled and then decides to go like flip flops all the way over to the other side of the cage, and then the dude just proceeds to punch him in the face over and over.
Me and my gringo pregnant wife. And one of the guys literally turned around and was like, "That's what you fucking get!"
Jeez.
I'm gonna take the pregnant wife out of here. Good day, sir.
Velasquez.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if Salma Hayek was topless or not, but the rest of the
there's no way you would forget it if that was happening.
Yeah, I was like, how are you gonna cut the last 10 minutes of this podcast? Why not Marvel Marvel
Zombies.
Why not Marvel Zombies?
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. 30% of Americans who are planning home improvements of $5,000 or more will pay for those renovations with a high-interest credit card. That may not be a great idea. A better idea may be to take cash out of your home with a Quicken Loans 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. The rate today on our 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.99%, APR 4.08%. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rate subject to change. Pay 1.25% fee to receive this discounted rate. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.